Hi, it's Victoria,
It's Clay.
and this is Merlin's Fault. Today we're going to be reviewing Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1. It was written by James Tynion the fourth. It was illustrated by Werther Deladera and then colored by Miguel Muerto. So I believe there's about 7 volumes total right now. And then there is a spin-off series, which is House of Slaughter. So I've read a few of Something is Killing the Children, and I told Clay that he needed to read it. So he did yesterday. And now we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, Will Eisner nominated series. It's also being adapted for a television show.
Yes.
In the near future. If you can ever get past the writer's strike, that'd be great.
Yes, that would be great. We do support the writer's strike.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just a brief overview, no spoilers here. It starts out with a kid, James, covered in blood, being interrogated by the police. He is being asked about his friends that have been murdered, and apparently there's a monster going around killing all of these children in a small town in Wisconsin. And we meet this woman. We'll tell you her name later. But we meet this woman, and she's clearly a badass monster hunter. That's pretty much all we can say without spoilers. Think so?
Yeah. And it's very gore friendly. So if there's any gore hounds out there, you're going to love this book. You're probably going to love the rest of the series.
Yes.
I've only read the first one so far, but satiated myself.
It only gets more intense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you love intrigue, you love mystery, you love characters that reveal like hints and things about themselves, doesn't give everything away, you're going to love this book. You're going to love where it's going. And I think without further ado, we can get into some of the spoilers.
Yes. So this is your spoiler warning.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I wanted to start out with talking about James, which James is the boy. He's the only survivor of his friends. They were having a sleepover. He told them a story about a monster that he saw, and then they went down to the ravine.
During a truth and dare kind of game.
Yes.
Truth and or dare.
Yes. And they all went down to the ravine, and they all got massacred except James. So we find out that James, while at school, he's being harassed by some other kids. They're afraid, we know that, and this is how they're reacting. But it's brought up about James's sexuality, and I wanted to talk to you about that.
You know how kids are. When they don't know how to deal with a certain situation, they're going to look at the sole survivor and look at that as immediately suspicious. James has a way of presenting himself as kind of removed from society to an extent. He's got the glasses, the hairstyle of Jeffrey Dahmer, and the kids really pick up on that and say, hey, you're socially awkward. You must have taken them to the ravine. Maybe you wanted to have your way with them.
And eating them. They did say that, like, you ate their bodies. That was pretty harsh, and that looked like from an older boy even too.
Right.
I did want to show, so there's some scenes that we see James's eyes, but then quite often we won't with his glasses on, and I just find that to be interesting. So in the same frame, you'll see glasses here with his eyes, and then in the next, you don't see them. So it makes it creepier in a way, like more removed, because I can't see his eyes and what's going on with how he's feeling.
Oh, yeah.
So I do feel like there's more to him.
He emotes really well. He doesn't want to admit everything that he's seen. So he's seen quite a bit from that night, and really brutal images, and he's saying that he would like to give the interrogator more information when really he's being introduced as someone with a PTSD. And the whole town knows about him, and they can immediately identify him. And it's like, that's a little creepy boy from that night.
Yeah, and I feel bad for him in that respect. But we do see, her name's Erica Slaughter, or at least that's the name that she's given us. She is the very blonde, green-eyed woman who clearly knows something is going on. She does not give out a ton of information, only gives out what she needs to. And I find it to be interesting that her hair covers one half of her face
Mm-hmm.
quite often. She does have, if it gets lifted up, there's a shaved part with a tattoo here. And then she's always seen with a scarf around her neck that when she does do her monster hunting, she pulls up and it looks like a monster herself, like the face.
That's what I was going to say, is the first introduction to Erica's character, you see this little girl who looks scared. She's got an eye, patch over her eye, like she had an accident. She's in a wheelbarrow. Then all of a sudden, Erica steps through the forest with bloody hands, bloody weapons, and is looking down at her with this kind of crazy grimace. And she's got the mask that make her actually look like the monster, because up until then we've only seen glimpses of something similar. So very strong introduction. And she's like, I could use a shower after a long night.
Yeah, the little girl's like, is it done? Erica says, yeah, it's done. We're good. So she then gets a phone call telling her to go to Archer's Peak, Wisconsin, which is where James is and the whole situation. So she goes, she ends up meeting up with James, and they basically are going through their plan of how they're going to deal with this monster. And Erica has been informed that this is a specific class level of monster, only to find
E7
out,
or something?
yeah, only to find out that it is definitely worse than that. So I was curious if you thought that was accidental, that she was given misinformation, or if that was on purpose to potentially get rid of her.
I really don't know. She has a interesting relationship with whoever's on the phone, giving her coded messages and giving her instructions and where to go. And it looks like she's wanting to help children for sure, but they don't always give her accurate information. Maybe they don't give her the best equipment. She has to like go out and buy her own equipment.
Yes.
And I think maybe they have a lot of monster problems. As far as like the information I have, they seem like they have a lot of information, but maybe they have it out for her in some kind of capacity.
Well, she keeps calling him an asshole.
Yeah.
You can tell that asshole, or when he calls, call him an asshole.
Absolutely. She also has something else on her possession that's pretty interesting.
Yes.
She's got a little plush octopus.
Yes.
With button eyes.
And did you notice it's got a zipper?
Yes.
On the mouth? Yep.
Absolutely.
So she talks to the octopus, and James hears her talking to the octopus. And at first, we don't hear anything back until later. And then we do hear the octopus actually does talk back to her. And clearly knows things. What do you think that octopus is?
So we see glimpses of it a little bit later. The author only wants us to know a little bit of information, because we immediately go, okay, it's not what it seems, but you see a glimpse of this golden kind of ethereal being that only she could see.
It gives some sort of an explanation on that to James. And she said, it's because you believe in monsters. And he was like, well, no, I don't believe in monsters. And she was like, yeah, you still do. You're a kid, your brain hasn't fully developed, which is true, but you're afraid of monsters. When you hear a creaky noise in the middle of the night, you think there's some sort of being out there, whereas adults don't. We know that it's not some sort of creepy monster, it's probably some creepy person, so we don't see the monsters.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. It's like when I was charged with taking out the garbage, and I couldn't do it until it was dark out, because we wanted to get everything by Sunday evening, have it waiting for the garbage truck. And it was like a really long driveway too, a long gravelly, in the middle of nowhere, wooded area. And I would see
kind of like
things.
this story.
Yeah, you would look into the forest, and your mind would kind of play a trick on you. And you would almost see these two beating eyes looking back at you, and you're just kind of in a stunned shock. And you go, "That's nothing. It couldn't. It's probably my imagination, but it could be something." And that thought still exists in your brain, especially at that age.
So what I couldn't quite pick up on is, because the children feel like they see these monsters, are they the ones actually bringing them to fruition?
Yeah, I think the imagination could play a certain like mystical element to the story, or they're creating them themselves, and perhaps the more scared a particular town is, the bigger the monster it could be. So it's kind of hard to make a call on that right now, since they're just introducing so many aspects of this world to us.
Yes, I agree on that. And I did find it interesting. They made a comment that this tends to happen in more rural areas. So I don't know if, again, it's because you've got those bigger open spaces, there's that woods, it's a little scarier than when you're in a city. There's just more people around you.
Yeah.
So your mind doesn't play quite as many tricks. I don't know. I'm just speculating on that. But I did think that was interesting that she said she hops to a lot of small towns over and over again.
It's repeated in small towns like this Archer's Peak in Wisconsin. Also, monsters look for particular styles of dens. So she knows exactly what to look for. So all the small towns have that in common.
It's just easier for a monster to hide maybe then.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's not just killing everyone. It is taking some children and keeping them in their den, and we'll explain why at the end here.
They also elaborate on the monsters getting a little bit more bold with their attacks as of late.
Yes.
And you get to experience from this one child's point of view, a monster just going into the house, because they don't usually attack that way.
No, they wait until the children are more on the outskirts, like in the woods, and it just barges right in and just slaughters a bunch of them.
Which is really interesting because it also introduces what the authorities might say on some of these investigations. Like they would come into the house and go, well, none of this makes sense. Like the coroner said, I can't explain this away.
Yeah, this isn't how an animal would attack,
right?
Because there's no flesh actually missing. It's just like screwing up the body. It's not pulling chunks out like an animal would. So they're like, well, it's not a bear attack. It must be a human, but at the same time, there's no evidence of any break-in.
Right.
And there's no evidence of somebody else being there. So, no footprints, they're not finding DNA of any sort. So what the hell is this?
Yeah. So she finds out a lot of those kind of things through investigating with James, who...
Erica does.
And to kind of like stave off the bad feelings and being scared, he feels a little bit more confident and wants to investigate with her.
Yes, he very much wants to.
To clear his name. He also wants to shake his PTSD. And with her, he confesses a certain attachment to one of the boys that went out with him to that ravine that night. And said, well, one of them, I just couldn't believe that he's gone. And she guesses right away that he was attracted to him.
Yes, he liked him.
Yes.
And she said, did he reciprocate that? And he goes, not to my knowledge.
Like he didn't even know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he doesn't know. So I'm hoping James gets a better story.
Oh, yeah.
I hope it gets better for him because this is pretty awful.
As we'll find out, we'll see if his story improves or declines.
Yeah. So I did want to bring up one more thing. At the very end, they go into the den and they realize that there are, there's a bunch of dead bodies, but there is one girl that's alive. And she said her name was, I think you would say it, Bian, B-I-A-N. And she comes out and Erica's like, you weren't on the list, the missing children's list. And the little girl goes, I'm sorry. She goes, no, it's okay. Like, let's get you out of here. So I was like, why? Why was she not on the list?
Right. Well, that's an interesting aspect to it because this business knows just about, I call it business, like this monster hunting association of sorts, has so much information on individual townsfolk and how to talk to certain people and make things happen where to, if someone is a person of interest or contained, they can release that person without any issue. During this investigation, important character to bring up, because he's going to come up a lot. He introduces himself as Tommy.
Yes.
Tommy's a young adult, still wears his Letterman jacket, so he must have been like an athlete of some sort.
He does remind me of Jonathan in Stranger Things, and
Yes.
the respect that it's his little sister that went missing. Parents are divorced. Mom is working jobs endlessly, exhausted, and so is he. And they're trying to make ends meet. Dad's he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
All of that did remind me very much of beginning of Stranger Things.
Right.
Yeah, and they haven't found the body of Sophie yet. So some of the kids, they've found the bodies, and some of them they haven't. And we know that it's because they were taken to the den and either kept there or eaten.
Right.
At that point.
Well, he finds Erica and James at Applebee's, which is this world's, restaurant of choice.
Yes.
And she said not everybody's even too scared to go to restaurants, so there's not a lot of people that are out.
No, there isn't.
They plot out their plan there, and they're going over a lot of this information where the Applebee's workers, well, Tommy's being their manager, goes over, asked her and James, because this is all very suspicious, considering his sister is still missing, and
yes,
asking about the missing children. And Erica just wants to leave, and Tommy seems to think that Erica has something to do with his sister missing.
Because she obviously knows more than she's leading on.
And he's really angry. And then you get the sense of like really smart storytelling. Right before that, his mom asked him to put out more missing posters on people's cars. And he seems kind of reluctant. He seems to think, or my impression of him is that his sister's dead. And he doesn't want to do it as much. She's like, well, aren't you the manager? You can do it. He's like, that's just going to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, uncomfortable. No, that's interesting. I guess I didn't pick up on that, but I could see that.
So he wants to think that Erica has something to do with it, and he's willing to get the information that he needs. So he goes to his father's house. Father is really depressed and just out of work. He's not really doing much. And like he even shows up and his father's just buck naked. And he's going to check up on him, but really he's there to get a weapon. He's getting his dad's firearm. He is off and trying to locate Erica. And Erica gets picked up by the police.
He clearly knows that she's not telling the truth because her ID is a piece of paper that looks like it was printed at Kinko's, not even laminated. And he's like, Slaughter, that's your last name. She goes, yeah, that's a last name. It's like, okay, well, clearly it's not actually yours.
Yep.
So there's a lot of back and forth, and she doesn't want to give him any information, and it just keeps asking him who was the first victim, and asks him to look back at where you knew there were kids missing, but was there a time before that potentially a kid went missing and you just wrote it off as a family member picked them up, they skipped town, something like that. And he was like, actually, yes, there was this one over a month ago. So then clearly this was starting before that, and the monster's just been getting bigger and growing and becoming more powerful. So the rate of kids missing, getting killed has been increasing, but it started out quite a while ago before anyone realized.
Yep.
So she told him about, there you will get a phone call.
Yeah. I think it's very ironic that Erica Slaughter is an organ donor, by the way.
I knew you were going to say that. You called that out. I was sitting next to him while he read the whole thing. And he's like, she's an organ donor.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that funny to you?
It is funny. It's just like, it might have been before she became a monster hunter.
Yeah.
And she just genuinely wants to, she's a giver and she's trying to save people.
Yeah. I'm an organ donor, but I didn't really think anything of it.
Well, she also spills a lot of organs of like monsters and zombies.
Yes.
And there's like a cool cut of like all the monsters that she's taken out. Just maybe even like a sample of the monsters that she's dealt with before. And none of them seem to be this one.
No, this one's pretty badass. So I
Yeah.
wanted to jump to the ending because we find out that, yes, she kills the monster, but it was the mother monster. So it has babies that are all around town. So clearly the next volume is going to be her having to deal with all of the offspring from there.
It could even be, you think the mother is the one that just broke into the house in the beginning? Or is it one of the offspring?
Maybe it was one of the offspring that just, they got big enough so they were released from the den, and then they're, maybe don't always know like the rules. Not that monsters have rules per se, but maybe it was just more bold because it was younger. I don't know.
Because we watched a video the other day of teenager lions hunting a hippo.
Yeah.
And they run over to it and they...
The only reason why I'm laughing is because they were stupid about it, and from the
course it's
video
not
no
gonna
one got
work.
hurt.
Right. The hippo goes, I wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
nope. And the father
the-
lion was just like sitting there, just kind of watching his two offsprings, being like, "Yeah, they're dumbasses."
He goes, they gotta learn.
It's like,
Yeah.
but you know the mama lion would be over there. If you two stop that, you're gonna get hurt.
Oh, yeah. You said earlier that one of your themes that you wanted to talk about the story was fear as being like a
Yes.
prime motivator.
Yes.
And I think that's real. That's really true.
Everyone
Everybody's
is acting out of fear.
Yes.
In this.
The fear that Tommy has to face the horrors of what happened to his sister, getting the information from Erica, because he does find her in that cavern,
does.
and we can go over,
He finds the top half of her.
yeah, which is really sad.
It is.
The fear for James, because even he has a moment where Erica says, wait outside the cave, I'm gonna go deal with this, because he keeps pressing, like, I gotta help, I wanna be with you, I feel safe with you. She says, yeah, just stay outside of the cave and watch over my stuff. Well, one of the things that he is left with is the octopus, and even he can converse with the octopus.
Yeah, suddenly now he does. Or maybe he always could, but the octopus didn't want to before.
And the octopus is a real asshole here. And he looks over and he finds a dead deer. And he visualizes his friend.
Yes.
That was all cut up. And the octopus goes, yeah, it's a real shame about that night. You think you also just led Erica to her death?
Yep, you led your friends to their death, and now you're leading her to hers.
Yep. You better go in there before something happens, or you're going to feel really bad for the rest of your life.
Would not consider the octopus to be lawful good. Just
Yeah.
say that.
Oh, yeah. The octopus is really egging him on, and he goes, fine, I'm gonna do what I can. Tommy confronts her in the cave. Erica is pleading with him to reconsider and move as close to her as possible. He goes, no, you're gonna tell me where my sister is. And even if he looked behind him, he cannot see this monster.
No, he can't. Not at that time, he couldn't.
There's a moment where even outside of his house, he can sense something. He's like, hello? And the monster is
Right on
6
top of him.
inches away from him or
Yeah.
something. She gets him away from the monster because the monster is like sneaking up on him. She ends up stabbing him in the head with this big, bulky, pen-looking thing.
Yeah, it's gold from
Yeah.
the House of Slaughter.
He sees all of these images, and one of the images was this big boardroom of all these other monster hunters with different masks and different little totems or different little plush animals. There's a giraffe in there.
Yeah,
That
that was
awesome.
great.
You can also see the monster. He tried to help Erica by shooting it, and he ends up hitting James. He ran into the cave thinking that he could help.
Yeah.
Gets him right in the guts. They're in trouble. Erica is going in on this monster with a chainsaw.
That was great.
Yeah, every time I see her, I just think of the Doom Eternal soundtrack. You know, like the Rip and Tear
Okay. Yeah.
soundtrack. So
Yeah.
she goes, take them to safety. This Bien and James. So he goes and finds John, who was sent over to keep tabs on Erica. They go to the hospital when you find out, you know, a thing with the monster being
Yes.
a mother.
Yes. To wrap things up, I wanted to give ratings on first the art.
Okay.
So what do you think from an art style? What did you think?
I think the art direction is really good. I think the transitions, and if you're gonna have like a horror sci-fi themed mystery novel with a lot of action to it, I think this is like a good 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
I really love how the blood tells a story. There's a really cool scene where in the intro where him in front of his friends with the clean shirt on, it says truth or dare. And then it transitions to him inside a really white holding meeting room, interrogation block with his bloodied shirt on.
Yes.
And then he's going to explain what happened.
Yes.
And I think that's really great. Like what you said with James's glasses, whenever he's trying to withhold information, you can't see his eyes. Whenever he's pouring his heart out, you can. So I thought that was very good stylistically. What would you give it?
4.5 as well. My biggest complaint is sometimes, and this is just a reading thing, when there's the 2-page spread, sometimes it'll go across both pages, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it will stick to that page, and I don't ever fully open my books because I don't want to get a crease on the spine.
Right.
So then it's difficult to tell, and I would catch myself like, oh, that's not the next, I shouldn't be going down this page, I should be going across the 2 and then go down. That was annoying to me because I like to just seamlessly read and get caught up in the story and not want to feel like I'm actually reading something.
Right.
And that would kind of bug me. There are a few frames that, and maybe it's really done on purpose, like you can't exactly tell what's going on, which can be cool too, but sometimes I was like to know, obviously, so.
Absolutely.
What do you think for story?
For the story, I think it's all cleverly written. I can get the behind the motivations of all the characters. Even the ones that are like seen as a bully, they more see it as like being scared.
Yeah, it's fear. Literally, fear is driving everyone in this.
Right. So I don't see anybody as being like really overly harsh or critical. I think you're just given a unique set of circumstances. I mean, these monsters can't be seen by anyone other than children, and even children might think that it's part of their crazy imagination.
Right.
I think the story is really well done. I haven't even gotten to one of my favorite characters in this whole first volume, that being Henry.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. I like him.
Henry brings up how children are seen as growing up and kind of seen as backwards, how parents kind of talk about their children. They usually talk about the moments of them being babies and, you know, having to take care of their children.
Oh, yes.
But it's more so how children take care of us and how we subconsciously think about the people that they're meant to be and who they're going to grow up to be. And they're more caretakers as children than we give them credit for.
Or at least he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sees his son that way that's missing.
Right.
So,
and they're trying to comfort him, but he gives a kind of a good lesson of, you know, of children.
So what do you give it then?
I would give it a 4 out of 5. It did make me think of Stranger Things and kind of that mysterious storytelling. And you get peeks of the monster and what's to come. Yeah, and a mysterious hero that might have more abilities than we really know.
Yes.
Kind of 11 vibes, but with Erica Slaughter's character.
Yeah. See that?
Yeah.
I gave it a 5. But I'm not always that harsh of a critic, and I loved it, so I read it all in one setting. I've reread it now, and again, I don't typically reread things.
Yeah.
But I really liked this one, and I was like, we gotta cover it. So, our overall rating, we're going to either say sleeve or not sleeve this comic book. Clay, would you sleeve it?
I would sleeve it and give it 3 kisses after sleeve, so I don't get any of my lip juice on it. Because it is
Perfect.
a good volume.
I'm going to then re-sleeve it so I don't have to get all your lip juices on me.
Okay. If you're interested in this story and want to play a game that's like more role-playing and you want to some of these themes, definitely check out Kids on Bikes.
Yes.
Kids on Bikes is very similar. It's got that Stranger Things feel to it. With a unique group of kids investigating monsters, and something is killing the children might actually be a really good influence or inspiration for you. So.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, this is Clay.
This is Victoria. And this has been Something is Killing the Children.
Slave it.